Greetings and welcome to the Crutchy Push Draft Watch Primer. A little bit about my background. I'm a bloke who has watched VFL, AFL footy for 50 odd years with a focus on junior and developing AFL footballers for over 20 years. However, I'd like to point out that I am not a coach, nor have I acted in any AFL talent scout roles. I'm just someone who has watched a lot of footy over the years. Going way back to 2006, the North Melbourne Footy Club reserve squad was split over two VFL sides, North Ballarat and Tasmania. And I got along to some of these matches when I had the free time to see how the up-and-coming North players were performing. Back in 2006, the Tasmanian side did not have any under-18s representation, and their best juniors were recruited into the VFL side to develop alongside senior players. The big talk Tasmanian juniors early this season were Mitch Thorpe, followed by Tom Hislop, who went at pick 6 and 20 respectively in the 2006 draft. But it was another relatively unknown Tasmanian junior who caught my eye and began to gather the attention of others as the season progressed. That kid's name was Jack Riewoldt. It may seem hard to believe now considering Jack's highly decorated AFL career, but Jack started out relatively unknown in the draft media circles and ended up as a bolter come draft time when the Tigers snapped him up at pick 13. His stat sheets wasn't particularly remarkable, kicking 18 goals from 8 games. It was the way he did it that made heads turn. Jack was a very scrawny kid with no great height factor and would have weighed less than 80 kilograms by my estimations, but yet he was outmanoeuvring and outmarking good quality VFL defenders who had far more experience and size. He was basically making them look silly. It was at this time that I had an epiphany regarding junior footballers. Sure, stats have some value, but what separates the really good players are player traits, and this has been my view ever since when evaluating junior footballers. With regard to best player reports, I've assembled this list from the 2015 TAC Cup, as it was known there, and many of the names are familiar. As you would know, some are unfamiliar. But what can we learn from the percentage of times these listed players were in the best players of their side? And the results are interesting. The best player data informs us that Jacob Hopper performed very well. But an unknown Mitch Norton was then next on this list, followed by Josh Shackey, who went very high in the draft. And then we have Chris Bukes Smith, just ahead of Clayton Oliver, followed by Josh Patullo, Lachlan Knight, who were well ahead of Charlie Curnow, Daniel Rioli and Josh Dunkley. But how did this play out in the draft? Well, as you can see, Mitch Norton disappeared into relative obscurity. Chris Bukes Smith, Josh Patullo and Lachlan Knight all had moderate VFL careers, whilst the rest of the players on the list, as you know, were drafted highly and have predominantly had very good careers. As for statistics, well, I'd like to point out that Nick Larkey averaged 1.6 goals a game and 7 kicks at a 58% kicking efficiency in the 2016 TAC Cup season, yet he now captains an AFL club. Again, what separated these players from the others? Player traits. AFL player traits. What can athletic profiles tell us? Well, athletic profiles are an important facet in scrutinising potential draftees, but again, they are not a crucial determinant. The all-time AFL draft combine records reveal the following. As you can see, the vertical jump, Jordan Gallucci and Aidan Bonner, modest AFL careers. Darcy Jones played just 37 games. The 20-metre sprint and repeat sprint record holder Joel Wilkinson only went on to play 26 games. Billy Hartung still holds the beep test record and attempted to eke out a career but fell short of 100 games. Josh Schoenfeld holds the record for the 3-kilometre trial, managed to eke out 15 games. Only 2-kilometre time trial record holder Harry Sharp still remains on a list, but is yet to play 50 or 100 games of AFL football. Once again, the determining attribute was AFL player traits. Let's now do a deep dive of our previously listed 2015 TAC Cup best players that went on to become drafted and connect up with how they went at the combine of their season. Well, Jacob Wiedering was third in the vertical jump and fifth in the beep test. Charlie Curnow didn't place in the vertical jumps, endurance tests, speed or goal kicking. Clayton Oliver did not place in the 20 metres or repeat sprints beep test or the 3 kilometre trial. And Shacky, Rioli and Dunkley did not place in anything. Again, what was the determining facet of these players going on to have relatively good AFL or excellent AFL careers? It was player traits. Now, regarding AFL and social media draft analysis, I would claim that power rankings are a ridiculous concept. Firstly, the very good junior prospects are self-evident to anyone who has watched football for 4 or 5 years, and these rankings present very little in the way of actual analysis to the reader or viewer. It's my view that these are generated by people with club and talent scout access, and then they are repeated over and over throughout the season based upon the bleeding obvious, whilst revealing very little in the way of how these were reasoned by the authors. If we look back on these various power rankings, mock drafts and phantom form guides, we can identify their analytical shortcomings. Ben Waterworth of Fox Sports in his 2015 Power Rankings top 30 players rated in his top 10 Shacky, Francis, Parrish and Burton, whilst Jordan Dawson, Tom Papley and Dan Houston did not make the cut. In 2017, Riley Beveridge, also at Fox, rated Jared Brander at pick 7 in his top 20 power rankings, whilst placing Andrew Brayshaw behind him at pick 15. Zach Bailey, Ed Richards and Brandon Starcevich did not make the cut. Cal Toomey of AFL.com rated Fisher McCasey at pick 10 ahead of Luke Jackson at pick 11 in his best 35 of his November 2019 Phantom Form Guide, whilst Chad Warner and Mitch Georgiades didn't even make the best 35 cut. I'd like to point out that I think Ben, Riley and Cal are good journalists and Riley and Cal are excellent presenters. But ask yourself this question: when did you ever see any of them or any other social media draft analyst step out the analytics that determine their selections and gradings? It appears to me that power rankings are basically regurgitated consensus, predominantly created by people who either have privileged inside access to AFL football scouts or social media presenters who want to convey a wisdom they do not reveal by providing any real in-depth analysis with a view to ultimately grow and maintain an online following. Yet again, it's football traits, AFL football traits, which determine most outcomes, but we see very little descriptive analysis of these factors in the mainstream and social media forums. As for single game highlights, whilst single game highlights packages are also helpful, they cannot inform about the quality of a potential draftee against a variety of opponents at different venues under a range of conditions. I do commend people that put out this content, but I would ask the viewer to just be cognizant of the limitations of what it actually informs you. So now we come to the point where the question must be asked: what are player traits? Well, these are intangible. I believe that it takes quite a lot of experience to build up a notion of what grabs the attention of AFL talent scouts and good draft analysts. And in my first Draft Watch player presentation, I'll be focusing on Calder Cannon's prospect and potential North father-son selection, Sam Harris, discussing his physical characteristics and statistical output relative to his circumstances, and with a heavy focus on the football traits that have grabbed my attention. Thanks for listening.
Hey you. Yeah, you. Do you like this video? There is a button. It's a very sexy button. It says subscribe on it. I wish I could click on it, but YouTube won't let me.
Spread the love, yo.